Welcome guys, this is Master of Command and these are my pro tips. When deciding your objectives at the start of the game, one of the easiest and best ones to take is settlements and slums. It's easy to raid 3 settlements. All you have to do is make sure the patrols don't catch you if you're not ready to face them, but you can easily just stay just outside of their range. And they won't come at you from viewing range, and then you can quickly nip in once they've left and raid the settlements. Do that 3 times and you get a free unit. This is very easy. Settlements are also on roads, and roads are where you're going to be travelling most often, so you're always going to come across settlements where other things like outposts can be miles out in the sticks. So it can be really difficult to actually find 4 outposts to begin with, or at least reach them because it shows you where they are. And slums is particularly good because one of the missions, objectives, that it gives you, rewards I should say, is being able to see where all side objectives are on the map, which will really help you to map out your journey across the map. So I highly recommend taking settlements and slums. And then on the flip side, I highly recommend not taking outposts and forts. Forts are a nightmare to capture early on in the game, and sometimes you don't ever end up capturing them, so don't take forts if you can help it, and I wouldn't recommend taking outposts either. At the beginning of the game, money is really important, so I recommend taking the Thalers and ammunition reward, and also selling off all your items so you can buy as many infantry as you can, because if you don't, you're going to get outnumbered on the higher difficulty levels very early on, and it's a lot easier to win battles with more infantry than it is with highly equipped infantry with all the items. So you can keep a couple of items, such as these veterancy gain items, which obviously will help you in the long run, but if it comes down to having more units, so a 5th or a 6th unit, and selling some of your items, or having just your 4 units and keeping all of your items, then I highly recommend selling everything until you've got 8 divisions really. I quite often sell all the way up to 12 and possibly even 16. Usually I go to 12 and then start equipping people with decent stuff. But a lot of these items all they'll do is just add a little bit of morale to 1 unit. So what's better, a little bit of morale on 1 unit, or having an entirely new division which can help out on the battlefield a lot more easily. When you start a new map, you're going to want to find out where the enemy HQ is. You can find them on the map. They've got 4 stars underneath them. So you're going to want to find out where they are, and then you're going to want to explore this area first, because once this bar fills up, they're going to chase you. So find out where they are and then trace a path back to you. Then that is the path that you're going to want to take first, and then from there you can decide your route after that. Quite often I find either hanging around this area and doing like a snake up and down away from him, or sometimes just going in a circle all the way around the border and then spiralling into the centre. But obviously if you spiral into the centre, you're going to end up closer to the HQ by the end. Where if you head straight towards him and then snake away from him, then your last destination is going to be as far away from him as you can get, basically. So always check to see where the HQ is at the start of the mission. Cannons, especially more powerful and more expensive cannons, are incredibly important, and if you get the opportunity to, then you're going to want to buy as many bronze cannons as you can. They've got incredibly fast reload speed and really good range as well. The £6 bronze gun is very good value for money, and the £12 bronze gun is just completely overpowered. You see there, just a single shot from a bronze gun has just wiped out 81 of these cavalry and knocked their morale all the way down. So it would only take 2 or 3 shots consecutively to just wipe these out completely, or wipe their morale out completely, and they may never recover. They're also incredibly good at counter battery fire, so you can take out the enemy artillery really early on in the battle, which will then obviously make it a lot easier for you. You'll take a lot less casualties from the enemy artillery. So rushing 1 or 2 artillery divisions and then equipping them with bronze 6-pounders, or iron 6-pounders will do as well, but bronze are slightly better, is definitely something you're going to want to focus on if you're struggling early on in the campaign. Don't forget that you have different stances that you can use. So forced march and forage are 2 different stances which you can move about while using, and then drill is a stance where you stay still. But forced march in particular is incredibly important, and you can basically outrun every enemy army on the battlefield apart from, or on the campaign map I should say, apart from the enemy HQ. And there are even doctrines which will let you outrun them, the HQ as well, if you manage to find them. But they are quite tricky to find. So as you're exploring, you might come across an enemy army that's just too powerful for you at the time being, and you're going to want to avoid them. Now if you get too close, you will trigger them, and if you just use the normal stance, you won't be able to run away. You run the same speed, where if you use the forced march, you can actually outrun them, and eventually they'll stop chasing you. This is also great for being able to explore as much of the map as you can before the HQ reaches full, basically. So this is a really good stance that I use quite often, all the time. And the only thing you have to bear in mind is that it uses a lot of provisions and you get a very small vision radius. But you can go from force march and then go to forage to get more vision, and like there you see we saw something that we wouldn't have seen if we stayed in force march. Then you can force march over, and then once you get to where you want to go, use forage to see a bit further again. Around day 60, field armies will start to be spawned off the map. Now I don't know how many are spawned, if it's just 1 in the Act 1 and then more in Act 2 maybe, so it might just be 1, but you can tell that they're field armies because they've got 2 stars underneath them, and it'll tell you that new ones will continue to appear. Now like I say, I think it's only 1, but these will chase you. They'll spawn just off the map or just off the out of the fog of war, basically. So even if you're in the centre of the map, they'll still just spawn just outside the fog of war. And you can actually outrun these. I didn't used to think you were able to, but if you force march and run away, you are actually able to get far enough away that they stop chasing you. So I don't really know how far you need to run, but if we run back again, you'll find that they've vanished. This isn't the field army, this is one of the patrol armies. So yeah, if you do see these 2-star field armies, then just run away from it until it stops chasing you if you aren't able to take it head on straight away. Some missions will request you to give them something. So this is garrison reservists. Some are giving ammo or provisions. Some are just having an officer available in your camp. So what you can do is you can unequip an officer if it requires an officer, or you can just unequip some ammo if it requires some ammo, or just take off some troops if it requires some reservists, and then go back in, and then you can complete the mission. And then once you've completed the mission, you can come back, put your officer on, put your reservists back up. So don't forget that you can just come out and unequip and go back in for free. Doesn't cost you anything. Defeating forts and also defeating these 3-star encamped armies will give you doctrines which can be incredibly powerful and can change the way that you operate entirely. So some of these will actually give you speed advantages on the campaign map so fast that you can outrun the enemy HQ all the way until winter. Unfortunately, the enemy HQ isn't affected by the winter speed penalty, so you can't outrun them in winter, but you can outrun them indefinitely before that if you get the right doctrines. So I've just captured the fort. And we've got new recruits start off with an extra veterancy. We've got veterancy things that you can get, melee damage. So they're all different. They're the things that you can get from these secondary objectives that you pick at the start of the game. But one of them is particularly good, which increases your forced march speed by 20%, I believe it is. So you can outrun everybody basically. So if you've got the spare manpower and you've got the ammunition, then taking on the forts is a good idea. And also if you've got grenadiers, then it's a lot easier to take a fort with grenadiers. When leveling up your units, you can then upgrade them to the next rank. Now, upgrading a unit initially will actually make them worse than keeping them at a lower upgrade but a higher rank. So you get an initial penalty for doing the upgrades, but you also get a cheaper upgrade, a cheaper leveling than if you just leveled all the way up to level 9. So for example, if you wanted to go to level 4 and then level 5, then it costs 9 levels. Each time you level up, it goes up by 250. So if you were going to get all the way up to level 9, it would cost 250 more at level 5, then 500 more at level 6. And then obviously that compounds to about 3,700, I think it is, by the time you reach level 9. Where if you upgrade at level 4, then it will reduce the amount of experience you need back down to 600 at level 0 and then 850 at level 1. So you will get a penalty in your stats, but it means that you can increase your level quicker because you need less experience to level up. So it's a trade-off. Do you want more powerful units, or do you want to upgrade through the tech tree quicker, or the upgrade tree? Some events let you trade in some items for units. So you can see here, you can trade in some uniforms for a recruit unit, or if you have a silver gorget or gorget, then you can also trade that in as well as the uniform to get a better unit, a line infantry. So sometimes it's a good idea to just keep a worn uniform and a silver gorget in your inventory, just so you can potentially get these free units. So these are found at the outposts, and you can also trade in a musket for a unit, but I can't remember exactly which event it is. So just keeping a worn musket, a worn uniform and a silver gorget on you for these objectives can net you some decent units. Make sure that when your units are under artillery fire, that you keep your officer as close by as possible. You want to make sure that whoever's under the artillery fire is getting the morale buff from the officer. So basically, it will increase the speed at which the morale goes up again, which can be the difference between the unit breaking or the unit staying on the field pretty much indefinitely. So you can also use it to chase your routing units. So if one of your units is routing, you can run him over and help them to recover faster. But I think the best use of the general is to stand near the people who are getting shot at by the artillery. So as you can see, his morale has gone back all the way up to full before he gets shot again. So without the officer or the general being there, there's a chance that he wouldn't have got back up to full, and that eventually he would break from the morale shock. When a cavalry unit is about to charge at you, don't countercharge with the unit that they are charging at. If you hold your mouse over the unit and hold Alt, you can see at the bottom it says bracing. So if you don't move, this will remain at 100, and you basically get, it's like a pikeman style defensive bonus from charges, where if you're moving about, this number will start reducing below 100, and if we countercharge, we won't get that bracing bonus. So even though you might not win the battle against an incoming cavalry, you can inflict more damage against them by standing still and just letting the bracing do its thing rather than countercharging like most people would do. So you can see here, because we're countercharging, we're losing all of the bracing bonus. We do get a charge bonus, but for infantry against cavalry, the bracing bonus is more effective than the charging bonuses. When using cavalry, try to attack the enemy from the sides and not from the rear. It's really easy for a unit to just switch from forward facing to backwards facing. Doesn't really take any time whatsoever, so you can't just quickly ambush them from the rear. But if they want to actually turn from north to east or west, then it's going to take them an incredibly long time to actually switch over, and this is while using sprint as well. So it's a lot more difficult for them to defend from a flank attack than it is from a rear attack. You can go for a rear attack if the enemy is already in melee, so you wait for them to get engaged in melee, then crash into the back of them, but never try to engage first into the back of them. Always wait for them to start firing at one of your troops and then come in from the side, not from the rear. As you damage the enemy, their morale bar gets split into two different colours. So you can see here, not only does it reduce the light blue bar, but it also splits it into a light blue and dark blue bar and reduces the dark blue bar as well. So the dark blue is their maximum morale, and the light blue is obviously their current morale. Now, if a unit retreats, if it gets routed, then it gets this triangles, red triangles, which indicates where their regrouping point is. So once their morale reaches the regrouping point, then it will regroup. Now, if their maximum morale bar is lower than their regrouping point, then obviously they can never regroup. So one decent tactic that you can use, if you get the opportunity to use your cavalry to chase down fleeing units who are slightly above this regrouping point, so if they're here and you just need to knock them down just a little bit, it might be worth just quickly charging your cavalry in, just to do that little bit of damage, just to make sure they don't come back again after they've regrouped. So it's always risky charging your cavalry in, especially when they've got a huge amount of units right in the middle and they're all in a decent formation. So you can end up taking quite significant casualties doing this. But if it stops like a powerful unit from regrouping, then it might be worth trading your cavalry for their powerful unit. Light infantry crouch down when they're firing. So line infantry can actually fire above light infantry, and dragoons can actually fire above both of them. So you can actually have situations like this where you can have 3 banks of units and all 3 of them are firing at the enemy. It's pretty rare that the dragoons can actually fire because they usually have short range carbines, but you can see here, let me just make sure the cannons don't spoil the fun. So you can see here, we've got these light infantry firing. We've got the dragoons firing. And we've got these cantonists firing. So they match really well together, having a line of light infantry in front of your linemen. Just make sure you put your short range weapons on the light infantry and your long range weapons on the linemen, so they've both got similar ranges. When you're not in a melee fight and you're just trading musket shots, make sure to take your bayonet off, because it will increase your accuracy. So by taking it off here, we've increased our accuracy by 5. Now, different bayonets will cause different accuracy penalties. Some of them, like the basic one, might only cause 1 point of accuracy penalty, like here. But other ones will cause a significant penalty. So make sure to put them back on again, obviously, if an enemy charges towards you. They will automatically equip if you charge, so you don't need to do it if you're about to charge. But if somebody's about to charge you, make sure that you put them back on again. Depending on what the enemy army composition is, you're probably going to want to set up your troops differently, your linemen. So if they've got huge amounts of artillery and you put your linemen quite deep, then a single artillery shot can wipe out a huge amount of your troops. Where if you spread them as thin as you can, you'll usually find you only lose 2 or 3. Not 2 or 3, but a lot less. And then the opposite goes for cavalry. If you've got your troops really far spread out and they've got cavalry, they can't really support each other. So if the cavalry come and break your flank, it's a lot harder for your other troops to come and support the flank that's broken. Where if you're quite deep, and say in forest, then if they break him, it's a lot easier for him to come and help out, and then obviously he's also closer and he's also closer. So make sure when you're setting up your army to actually have a look to see what the enemy army composition is. When repositioning your units, it takes them a long time to go from one direction of facing to another. So if you turn off the volley fire, you'll get a lot of shots off as you're turning that you wouldn't have normally got off, because they would normally wait for the entire division to turn before they fire. So it's always a good idea to turn volley fire off just as you're turning around. So this can be the case where if you're turning to face a cavalry charge, or if you're trying to flank an enemy with infantry. So say here I wanted to flank him, I could move him up here, but then as I'm moving him up here, I'll turn off the volley fire so they'll shoot as they're moving. Then make sure to turn it back on again, because they do more morale damage when it's turned on. And then finally, we're going to end on a cheesy strat, which, I don't know, feels broken, feels wrong to me. So if you encounter a force that is way larger than you and you didn't manage to escape, then you can basically retreat before the fight starts. You can either fight or retreat, but if you retreat, you take a huge amount of attrition or penalties, manpower losses. Well, you're able to retreat during the battle as long as your army morale, which is up here, your main morale, is below 75%. So it's not individual troops morale is below 75. It's just your army morale. So if you send your commander over to the enemy, now our morale is at 75%. So as soon as I take a single casualty, well, it's actually going up a little bit, but I only need to take a couple more casualties and then I'll be able to retreat with everybody. Looks like I forgot to unlimber the cannons. We're actually doing better than we should be doing, really. So it looks like it's leveled out at 85. So you get a large shock at first, it looks like, and then it goes back up again. But it won't be long until we're down below 75. There we go, that should do it. And then you can just retreat with everybody and you'll save yourself a ton of manpower that you would have lost if you'd have just retreated at the start of the battle. And you also inflicted a little bit of manpower damage on them as well. So I only lost 387 instead of however much I would have lost if I'd have just retreated normally. And I did 1000 damage to them as well, so it's incredibly cheesy. I can't say I fully recommend doing it. But if you want to be cheesy, then at least there's the option for it. And that is it. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope it was helpful. And if you did enjoy it, please like and subscribe.